Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Good evening and welcome to the 6th open house for TradePoint Atlantic. We hold these open houses twice a year, once in the spring and once in the fall. So I think this marks our 3rd year in working a redevelopment plan for Sparrows Point. My name is Aaron Tamarchio. I'm the Senior Vice President for Administration and Corporate Affairs. And I'm going to guide you through the agenda for this evening. We have actually a pretty packed agenda and a lot going on. And really look forward to sharing this all with you this evening. First off, we're going to start with a general open session where we present to you some updates here at TradePoint Atlantic. We're going to hear from Eric Gilbert, our Chief Development Officer, on all the latest development news that's happening on the site. And then you're going to hear from Pete Hade, who is our Director of Environmental, and he'll talk a little bit about the maintenance dredging application that we've got in, and I'm sure there's some questions there about that. And then we'll hear from Tom Hewitt with the Maryland Transit Administration and talk about Baltimore Link's new proposed Local Link 63 to service Sparrows Point. We're very excited about that. And after that session, we'll open up to questions and answers. So what I'd like to do is try to get through the presentation, and then we'll open everything up to questions and answers after everybody's had a chance to present. Following the question and answer session, we'll have our traditional meet and greet at the assigned tables. And this is your opportunity to have more in-depth discussion with our team. We've got a really robust and talented team that has been built up over the years. And this is a great opportunity to meet with them. I'll point out some areas around the room where you may want to visit. Over here to my right is TradePoint Rail. That's our rail operation here on the site. Over here to the right in front of the room is TradePoint Marine. That's our marine terminal operations. To my left, you'll find our development team doing the work with TradePoint Development. And then your representatives from the demolition company are here to talk about what's left of the demolition work and where they are in their progress. And then next to them, we've got the environmental team, and they'll share with you the progress being made on the environmental. And if you have specific questions on the dredging application permit, we've got details about that over there. Beyond the environmental team, we have 2 very special guests. We've got MTA here to talk in more detail about the Local Link service to Sparrows Point. And we have FedEx Ground, who is here. FedEx is needing to hire for seasonal jobs. So if you know anybody that's looking for seasonal work, Shay back there. Shay, raise your hand. She'll be happy to talk to you, and you can take information and applications for relatives or yourself. And I know they're eager to get hiring for seasonal jobs at the Sparrows Point facility. In addition, I want to announce there is also another employment opportunity with Atlantic Forest Products. They're a neighbor here. They have a corporate office in this building, and they also have a yard that they operate on site here, and they are looking for 2 forklift operators. There's information about this employment opportunity at our front desk, so feel free to pick this up and share it around. And we've just posted these employment opportunities on our website, TradePointAtlantic.com, so I encourage you to please visit that. I'd like to introduce a couple of special guests we have this evening. You just stand up, and we're really pleased to be supported by our local elected officials. Delegate Rick Metzger with District 6. Delegate Metzger. And we've got a delegate that's traveled from northern Baltimore County, Delegate Chris West, 42B. Thank you, Delegate West. Appreciate you coming with us. And Rick Johnson with Baltimore County Office of Economic Development and Workforce Development. Rick, thank you for coming this evening. Appreciate you coming out. All right, well, now on to the show, and it's my pleasure to introduce to you my colleague, Eric Gilbert. He's our Chief Development Officer. He has done an incredible job at putting a Class A team together to help revitalize this facility. He's done it before in incredible ways in Chicago, and we're very pleased to have him here. I know you've seen him talk earlier, and he'll give you an update on the development. Eric?
All right, thanks, Aaron. Appreciate the intro. First off, just thanks for everyone. It's amazing to me how many people we get to have come out and spend their evenings with us every time we do these open houses. So it's good to see this room grow every time we come out. And frankly, it's very important to us to have you all here. Projects like this of this scale don't happen without the whole community pulling for it and pulling in the same direction. So again, thanks for your continued support. I'll get right into the latest. I think last time we met last spring, we talked about some exciting new developments here at the Sparrows Point site. We're happy to announce there's even more activity than where we were at last spring. If you look to the map, what we've done is essentially expanded our zone of activity. Everything that's shaded yellow, purple, on that map indicates transactions or different stages of transactions that we're underway with right now. So over 20% of the usable property at Sparrows Point is being utilized in some form or fashion with a tenant. So we're excited to say that footprint continues to grow in very exciting ways. And I know we mentioned at the last spring open house about some of the marquee names that we have in the park. And so I'll start with Under Armour. Under Armour is the building and the tenant, I think, that gets the most press, and so I'd like to start there tonight. TradePoint's extremely thrilled to have a marquee name like Under Armour out here. And to kind of save this deal from going to Nashville, I spoke about this, I think, at the last open house was a big deal for us and really a turning point for TradePoint and Sparrows Point. So again, if there's any Under Armour folks in the audience, thank you for your commitment to being at Sparrows Point. That building is, by the way, being turned over to Under Armour next month. November 1st is our goal. So you'll see about a 6-month period of MH&E conveyor work and other equipment work going on in that building. So much like the FedEx building where it was done and then it sort of appeared to sit dormant for a period of time, you'll see a similar period coming up here with the Under Armour facility. But trust me, there's a lot of work going on in that building over the next several months, and we will be, I believe Under Armour's plans are to open operations on May 1st of next year. So we're excited to help them get to that point. I mentioned FedEx, and I just wanted to make sure, for those who didn't hear, we had a groundbreaking about a month ago at the FedEx facility. That was obviously the first big blue chip name we've brought to the park, so again, very grateful for FedEx and their commitment to be a tenant at Sparrows Point. That project is fully operational today. It's been operational for about 3 months now. And again, I believe there's representatives here that may be available to discuss employment opportunities at that site. Right behind us, actually to most of your left, we have just to the north of this office building, we have a site we refer to as the B6 site, which we're now calling we've rebranded it as the TradePoint Atlantic 5 facility. That site will be, you can see it's under construction today. We are in the final, we're literally in the final days of executing a long-term deal with a major name there as well, and there'll be more to come on the details of that later this year. But again, another blue chip name, and I think a product type that fits very well with this Class A logistics park that we're building today. Over on the northwest corner of the property, up that large purple swath up near 695 is our spec building. So this again is our nearly 1 million square foot industrial spec building. That started earlier this year. That is on schedule to be complete later this year. We are very excited about the prospects that are showing interest in that space. Again, it's a speculative building, so there is no tenant for it today. It is the largest speculative warehouse in Baltimore County. So again, we're extremely excited about our position in the market. And frankly, the market as a whole, the Baltimore industrial market, has really been in a strong growth position the last year or so. I think 2017 was the lowest vacancy rate in the industrial market, in this sub-market, that we've seen in decades. So we're doing our best, and I've got partners at JLL here that we work with almost exclusively on making sure that we're capturing every opportunity we can for Sparrows Point. And again, thanks to all of the people here in the room tonight to continue to voice your support for this project. I think it is can't be underestimated how much your voice counts in this whole process. So continue to please show your support for this project, and that will definitely help us continue to hit our goals. And this is sorry, I wasn't clicking through the slides very well, but this is the B6 site. This is the one that we will announce later this year, and that we're putting a final touch on the agreements as we speak. Down by the port, down by our marine port, we have two buildings. I think I discussed this last meeting, but these are two very critical buildings that really don't exist in any large way in this submarket, and these are Class A port-centric buildings, meaning that they are designed specifically for the handling and storage of bulk marine commodities. So these are bulk commodities, and they could handle a variety of tenants and product types. These are really spec buildings, so we don't have a specific user in mind yet, but I have ultimate confidence that we will lease these buildings as soon as they're done, or sell the space in those very quickly after they're done. So those are on track to be complete. First part of next year, I would say by January, those buildings will be fully up and operational. In one of my last slides here is the retail development. I mentioned this at the last meeting as well, that we took a large part of our frontage on 695 and Beth Boulevard and have rezoned that for a retail component. And clearly, with a project of this scale and this much employment, it's very important that we have amenities, not only for the community as a whole, but also for the big employment base that will be here. So excited to say that we have signed our first retail deal. It's a well-known convenience fueling name. We will be announcing that later in the year. I want to be synced up with our user and make sure we do a proper rollout of that. So we're very excited to have the first mover into the retail park, and I'm confident that that's going to lead to much more momentum and certainly market excitement and recognition. You will see, for those who drive by the park, you will see activity, hopefully permit pending, later this year before the end of the year. John Martin, my development director, has guaranteed me that we will have that site cleared by the end of this year, right, John? Okay, good. We want to clean up the front entrance and make sure that this park shows and we capture everything we can capture with that site. It's really a marquee site, and we want to make sure we maximize its potential. And with that, I'll hand it over to Pete Hay, our environmental director.
Can you hear me in the back? Good evening, everybody. I'm Pete Hay. I'm the environmental director for TradePoint Atlantic. Thank you, Eric, for the introduction. Eric had some great slides. I am not going to have as beautiful pictures and such nice pictures as development, and that's the problem with dredging. There's no good photo ops. No matter how good a job you do, when you're done, it looks pretty much the same. One preface of my slides here is, over the years I've had occasion to work with some facilities that were going out of business. They were shutting down or going bankrupt. And my observation of these facilities typically is one of the first things that happens that goes out the window is maintenance. The first thing that gets cut is your maintenance budget. And maintenance is not performed at these types of facilities. And I'm afraid to say that the previous owners of Sparrows Point were no exception. The maintenance dredging of our port was neglected. At this point, we are here, and what we've done is submitted a permit application so that we can perform maintenance dredge to maintain the depth of the port. What's happened is the sediment material that comes in through the harbor, comes in through the estuaries, settles in the existing channels of the port. And it settles in front of the turning basin and in front of our approach channel. This sediment, particularly in areas where there's not a high velocity flow, and Sparrows Point is an area where the velocity of the current is very low, exceedingly low, about half a foot per second. There will be a tendency for sediment to settle there. I worked with a terminal up in the Bronx, which is right on the East River, and the tides were violent. And this terminal was right on the corner of the turn from Long Island Sound into the East River. And that terminal never had to dredge because the currents and the tides were so violent that it basically kept it dredged. Here in Sparrows Point, our current is very low. So over the years, the sediment and this material from the harbor and from the estuaries have settled in. And what we have proposed to the government is to dredge this material out. So what we're doing simply is trying to attain the depths that we've had before. We absolutely have to dredge to stay in business and to get back to the depths we were at before. What we're looking to do is get to 42 feet on the east berth and 47 feet at the fingertips. These are previous depths. The permit and the way we expect this project to run is that we will dredge approximately 200,000 yards a year for the next 5 years. Now, last week I was at a community presentation where I was asked, well, why don't you just do it all at one time? And the reason the reason we're doing 200,000 at a time is because the receiving facilities in Baltimore Harbor have limited containment capacity. So we have to meter this material in over a long period of time. The material is, as I said, sediment. We've tested the sediment. The NPA has been good enough to say that they will accept from us 200,000 yards a year. The tested results of the sediment show that the material is a very good candidate for innovative reuse. In other words, a beneficial reuse. You can reuse the material. The NPA now has a new standard that any material that is going to be brought into the facility, and Steve, if I'm getting this wrong, please let me know. But any material coming into NPA at this point has to meet innovative reuse standard. So I got a drawing here that shows the footprint of what we're looking to dredge, and it's basically the turning basin and the approach channel and the finger pier. I apologize, you can't read these little numbers here. I'm not sure which side I should be on here, but these little numbers here are actually the existing depths of the approach channel and the finger pier. And you'll see the way sediment moves in the harbor is really dictated by tides and currents. Storms will move the sediment around. Vessel prop wash will move the sediment around. It's not a flat bottom. You'll see in some of these existing numbers, they're actually up around or down around 42 feet already. In other areas, it shows up much more. Around the finger pier, it gets up to about 44 to 46. So in some areas, we're not going to be going very deep. In others, we'll have to go a little deeper. As I said before, the sediment has tested out as a good candidate for beneficial reuse. However, the NPA has required of us to do additional sampling, which we will do. We will do additional sampling and submit those results to the NPA. Because it's dredge material, and the dredging can pick up and resuspend sediment, we've also modeled this project. We modeled to see what the impact of the plume would be from the dredging. The tests we've done on the sediment show that the material is a kind of a clay silt. So that means the material has a propensity to be kicked up. As you're digging it up, you will kick it up, you will create kind of a cloudy plume directly around the dredge material, or the dredge, point of dredge activity. We used a model called the dredge model, actually. It's the same model that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers uses to evaluate the environmental impact of the dredge operation. And what the dredge model did tell us is that it's immediately around the dredging operation, you will have higher turbidity, or total settleable solids around the dredge operation. But that cloudiness, that turbidity of settleable solids, quickly dissipates and settles out and disperses. And at about 700 feet from the point of dredge, you'll be back down to background levels of TSS, the settleable solids. In other words, the solids that are in the water column. To put that in scale, the southern, this is the southern shore of Sparrows Point, right here. This is the southern shore of Sparrows Point, but it continues out. Southern shore of Sparrows Point is approximately 10,000 feet wide. So 700 feet to give you a sense of scale of how far the plume would go before it disperses and settles out. Now, I did mention before that we've applied for a permit, and we're going through that permit process now. It's a fairly collaborative and cumulative and sequential permit process. It can be somewhat laborious, frankly. We have to get approvals from the MTA, from the state NDE, from the Bureau of Public Works, and from, of course, the Army Corps of Engineers. And the Army Corps of Engineers will not authorize your permit until they have heard from MPA that your material is acceptable and that they have room in the containment facility for your material. The Army Corps of Engineers also confers with the National Marine Fisheries Service. So there's a lot of conferring going on between agencies. It is a sequential process. The Army Corps of Engineers will not issue an authorization until the MDE has issued their water quality certification. The water quality certification will not be issued by the MDE until the Bureau of Public Works issues their wetlands license. And the Bureau of Public Works will not issue their wetlands license until the state submits a report and a recommendation, and the recommendation has to be a thumbs up before they will issue it. So it is a fairly sequential and involved process. I will tell you where we're at in the process right now. The MDE public notice has been completed. The state lets people know that they're contemplating a permit. The MDE will have a public hearing sometime early December on this permit. Most likely it will be the week of December 4th or December 11th, but the date has not yet been determined. And again, it's up to the state. The Army Corps of Engineers has a public notice out now in progress. I do not know if the Army Corps of Engineers will decide to have a public hearing or not, and if they did, whether they would have it in joint context with the state or not. But we will keep you advised on the status of this permit as it proceeds. And if there are any questions or everybody wants to discuss this in greater detail, I'll be over at the environmental station for the rest of the day. Thank you very much, and I'll turn this back over to Matt.
Thank you, Pete. And I think next up, and then we'll go into questions and answers, is Tom Hewitt with the Baltimore Link MTA. Tom, really happy to have you here tonight.
Thank you, Aaron. How's everyone doing tonight? Good. I'd like to talk to you about the proposed route that we're putting out there for access to TradePoint Atlantic. We're really excited about this at the Maryland Department of Transportation, Maryland Transit Administration. We've been working on this with TradePoint for almost 1-2 years now, working with not only the TradePoint Atlantic staff, but also the employers, specifically FedEx and Under Armour, but we've been working with all the employers to make sure that we get this routing right. We want to provide transit service to the area because we have a commitment to have access to the job centers in the region. And we see this as a huge opportunity to provide transit access to this major opportunity to get jobs to the people who need them. So there's two proposals for routing that we have put out. A couple weeks ago, we put this on our website for these two routing alignments, and I kind of want to go into them into detail with you guys. As you can see in the map, we have the dark black line. That's the route. TradePoint's the bottom right. You can see. So we have the routing alignment that essentially goes from TradePoint, takes Peninsula Expressway up to Dunman Way, and takes Dundalk Ave to Bayview. That is essentially the trunk of the route. That's going to be where we see the most frequent service. During shift times, it could be as much as a bus every 8 to 10 minutes. And that's very important because we want to work with the employers to make sure that our transit schedules match the shift times. We have a branch of the 63, the Local Link 63, that then goes from Hopkins Bayview to downtown. The reason we have a branch is because we understand the snarl of traffic downtown can inhibit on-time performance and schedule adherence for any transit route. So the frequent line is going to be operating between Hopkins Bayview and, that is a good pointer, Hopkins Bayview and TradePoint Atlantic. So this is going to be the service that you see that's going to be operating approximately every 10 minutes during the peak times, with selected service going down either, for this alignment, it'll be Eastern Ave, from Bayview to Eastern Ave. Again, we did that because there are other options that a person originating from downtown can then get to Bayview. So in this example, the 63, if they can't catch the 63 downtown, they can catch the CityLink Orange or the CityLink Red to get to Bayview and then transfer to the 63 to go downtown. Alignment in general, 4 routes connect to Hopkins Bayview. So the CityLink Orange goes all the way out to Essex on the east, past to West Baltimore Mark Station on the west. We have the CityLink Blue, which goes all the way out to CMS and Westgate on the west and terminates at Bayview as the eastern terminus. We have the Local Link 22. That goes all the way up to Endowment. We have the 59. That goes all the way up to the eastern part of the county in Whispering Woods. Essentially, 4 routes connect at Bayview, and in the full alignment, we have 24 routes that connect to the Local Link 63. So with one transfer, you're talking about getting from places like Owings Mills, up to Johns Hopkins and Charles Village, up to even White Marsh, down to Curtis Bay. On one transfer, 2 buses to get you there, whereas also you can take 1-seat ride from downtown to TradePoint Atlantic in about 50 minutes to an hour, depending. This is the one alignment down Eastern Ave. The other proposed alignment, again, the same exact branch, or the same exact trunk route from Hopkins Bayview down to TradePoint. The only difference now is it's kind of hitting the southern part of the Canton area, going down Boston Street. So we open up the options for the public to essentially provide recommendations and make determinations. We have our public hearings that start November 13th. Specifically for this area, November 15th at the North Point Branch Library, we'll be hosting a public hearing from 5:30 to 8. So you can provide your formal comments, let us know what you think. In December, we'll make a final determination on either if it's option A or option B for the alignment. And then February 4th of 2018, the route will go into service. And again, this is just the start of it. As more employers come online at TradePoint, we're going to be changing the alignment slightly in the TradePoint so we can access more employers in a better way. So again, this is just for February 4th. It will be one of these 2 alignments, and we're open for any comments. We have a table in the back, and I'd be happy to answer any questions on this alignment or anything else you have with the Baltimore Link system.
Thanks, Tom. We really appreciate that. I mean, that's literally the second question we get when we're talking to prospective tenants. One is, when can you have my building ready? And 2, how are my workers going to get to work, and do you have enough of them in your area? So this is a very important piece of the puzzle to really create an employment center here at TradePoint Atlantic. We appreciate the work MTA has put into this, and we appreciate the support of Governor Hogan's administration and the Secretary and our local delegation, who I know has been pushing this pretty hard. I think we're going to go into our general questions and answer session. But before I do, I neglected to recognize Charles Connor, who's the Baltimore Regional Director for our U.S. Senator Van Hollen. Charles, if you're still out there, there you are, over there. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Senator has been here on our site several times, and we appreciate his support and his office's support of our operation here. We'll open up to questions and answers. I think here's Lisa. Please be nice to Lisa.
I have short legs.
She'll run the questions around, and we'll call people up here for Q&A if you have any questions.
My name is Russell Donnelly. For anyone who doesn't know me, most people do. My question goes to Pete Hay in the environmental issue on the dredging. Could you please describe, not in great detail, but at least the background on what measures you're going to use to contain and diminish any outpouring of the sediments through the water column?
Thank you, Russ. Thank you for the question. Good evening. We're going to be doing a couple of things. Number one, can you hear me?
Yeah, just talk closer.
Number one, we're going to be using an environmental bucket, which helps to cut down and diminish the amount of sediment that may be released or start up. And the other part of this is we basically have modeled the dredge activity itself, and we see that it's going to be less than 700 feet from the actual point of dredge that we would be down to background level. And particularly when you look at the turning basin, this is basically within the turning basin itself. Thank you for the question. I'll be in the back if you want.
My name is Joe Lawrence. I'm a 40-year mine worker, and I'm beautiful. But my question has to do with, we were told that they're going to tear down the old main building, main offices. I mean, that's the rumors. My question is, in front of it, we've always looked up to it, this, we call it a rail mill statue. It's a big great beam that's in front of it. It's been there for a long time.
The Bessemer Arch, I think, is what it is. Is that correct?
Yeah. Okay, I see you better. Mm-hmm. But my question is, are we, when we tear the building down, is there any way of saving that, you know, like we did the Star, similar to it, but not put lights on it?
Yes, I think that will be preserved, and we'll find an appropriate place in the park. Once the park infrastructure gets built out, we'll have designated areas where we can put historic structures like that. Sir, definitely. I think we got Keith in the back.
Hey, Aaron. How you guys doing?
Good.
Hey, on the line of the main building, we in the community of Edgemere want to save the bricks. They're historical, and we want to construct a memorial. And we would hope that the bricks would be preserved, and that'll conserve landfill.
Absolutely, and I think we've got your letter, and I think a letter from a couple other folks in the community, and we've actually talked to our development team, and Eric has been conferring with the demo contractor, and we could definitely preserve some bricks. We just got to determine how many and how much. We can't preserve the whole building; that's a lot of bricks, but we could definitely get you a meaningful portion of the bricks from that building.
Wonderful. And my second question is the signage coming off 695 to TradePoint. A lot of vehicles and 18-wheelers have been going to Edgemere. So we'd like to see if we can get that rectified.
Absolutely. We're working, in fact, our director of security, where's JD? JD here? Yep. There's JD back there. JD's our new director of security. JD has been running around the site looking at all of the old signs that have been directing people to different gates that don't exist anymore. And we're working on updating those signs to make sure that truckers and anybody looking to find their way to TradePoint Atlantic can do that. Now that we know generally what the gate alignments are at this point, we can begin a discussion with SHA on replacing those signs. And we have a pretty aggressive signage campaign we're going to be deploying pretty soon. Any other questions?
Yes, my name is Buzz Bill from the Baltimore Post. I have a couple questions. You mentioned Under Armour coming to TradePoint Atlantic. Our investigation shows they've only signed a first right of refusal, which means they have not signed a lease yet. their bonds traded today at $14 a share, which is considered to be a junk bond status. Do you really see them coming to TradePoint lending given their financial straits?
Buzz, we don't build a 1.3 million square foot facility on a handshake. We have a deal with Under Armour. We're very proud to have them here, and they are due to open operations in June of 2018.
Hi, I've got a business on Hollywood Avenue, and the issue of trucking is a problem. And with all the activities coming out of the port that uses Hollywood Avenue, especially the container trucks, is out of control. And I'm wondering if any kind of infrastructure or direction is going to take it away from that two-lane road.
It's a very good question. In fact, this is a question that has a lot of the port community has been discussing. We are preferring a Broning Highway route, which is a more direct route from the Port of Baltimore to Sparrows Point. We've been working with our state delegation to try to incentivize trucks to use that route as opposed to going through the community. The one area of concern with the truckers is there's a toll that they have to pay, a toll that they're using to not go across the bridge. And we've actually had legislation proposed in the General Assembly for 2 years now. This last year, we got a little bit measure of a success where the General Assembly asked MTA to take a look at that and report back, put a report back. I do have a commitment from MTA that if they're going to move to a different type of tolling system, they'll look at the location of that gantry. That may be a couple years coming, but we're actively having conversations to try to open up that portion of the routing because it just makes more sense. Broning Highway it's a little more secluded away from the community, and it's a much better connecting point for Sparrows Point and TradePoint Atlantic. There's a group called Port to Point, and that work group is from the Baltimore Metropolitan Council. They too have been studying that traffic routing, going back and forth, and it's proved to be more efficient. If we get rid of that toll, I think we can help reduce that traffic on Hollywood Avenue. AJ.
Hi, Aaron. How are you?
Good.
I just want to compliment you. I'm AJ Bierman with King Pallet in local business for the last 50 years. And I just want to compliment you and your team. Ever since you came from Harford County, you've brought a good point of view to the folks down here on our side of the county in Baltimore County. And I want to compliment you and your team. You've been slow and meticulous, and I think you're doing a great job. We can see the growth here ever since Sparrows Point. When I was in the trucking business back in the 60s and 70s, and that went by the wayside, and we're growing, and I think in my lifetime I'm going to see it back really good for the community. Thank you.
Thanks, AJ. Appreciate it. And for the record, I'm actually from Baltimore County, Catonsville. I worked in Harford County for a while. Yeah. We haven't received any updates. Eric, any updates on the cemetery? I know we were working on a notification of kin. There's a process that you have to go through to notify kin, but there hasn't been a need to kind of move forward on that from a development perspective. Am I correct, Eric?
It'll be next year. We're really going to formalize the process. So yeah, nothing's
Yeah. Yeah, there is a process that we have to follow through for the state's attorney, who will then kind of act as the arbiter, and we'll have to notify next of kin if we're going to move the cemetery, and then we'll have to designate an appropriate cemetery for reinterment. So we'll go through that process at that time. And for the record, when we look back at history, the relatives who had who put their relatives there, they said that they put them on a beautiful bluff overlooking the Potomac. So right now they're in the middle of an industrial site. It's 125 years of steel making.
Hi, I'm Tammy Reeder. I'm a local community. Love it here. Been here a long time. We're just rumors. Are there going to be housing development, anything? We've heard everything all across the board, rumors to be opened up to unarmed employees or what have you.
We are an industrial commercial site. We are believing that the genesis of jobs and economic creation here on this property will fuel a renaissance of housing, sales and construction and redevelopment in the existing neighborhoods and communities.
Anything on manufacturing?
Yes. I can't tell you yet. But we do have an exciting opportunity that we're talking to right now. And that's an important point because I think that this facility, I know a lot of people are seeing the distribution and commerce jobs, that those are the first frontline jobs that are coming. But I can assure you the conversations Eric and his team are having and the JLL team, we have a diversified tenant potential here at TradePoint Atlantic that includes potential manufacturing operations. So we're very proud of that. And I think you'll start seeing more diverse announcements of types of tenants in the near future. Any other questions? All right. And we'll close this off after Buzz here.
Mr. Camarcha, you mentioned about jobs. Can you tell me how many jobs there are down here locally you could find none in our investigation? There are no jobs down here for local people. They're all out of state. Another thing, too, to be noticed is that the RC Capital is a partner of Legis Group, which is owned, has a revenue of $9 billion, which is owned by Legis Group, which is owned by Jim Davis, Stevens, out of the owner of the Ravens. And when this builds out to its fruition, it could be cost of taxpayers as much as $8 billion. Comment on that.
Well, we've been pretty open who our investors are. We're very proud of our investors and their local heritage here in Baltimore. We are expecting a potential $2 billion investment here when it's all said and done and built. That's a combination of our investment and investment of our potential tenants. And as far as jobs here, we do a census regularly. In fact, Lisa right there takes census on a semi-annual basis of our tenants. We have a little over 800 people employed here working on site. It includes the now 75 employees at TradePoint Atlantic. I remember when there were 4. And then there are also jobs at the FedEx facility, our other tenants like Access World and Caprock Grain, and our host terminal operators. And then our construction team that's coming out. And I know you mentioned construction. I know one of the construction companies you see a lot running around, Dixie. They're based in Harford County, and they're a big, strong Maryland presence here, and they use the local 37 operating engineers. So there's a great diversified workforce, and we're very proud of that, and it's growing. And I think with the tenancy that Eric was talking about earlier, probably by the end of 2018, we will have exceeded the 2,500 employee mark. That was the last number of employees that were employed by the steel mill, and we expect to exceed that. And that's within 3 years of taking over a very complicated site. All right, please help yourself to more Costas. Costas, thanks again for coming out, and I appreciate everybody's this evening. Please stay tuned in to us and our Facebook and messages online, and we will be doing the star lighting on November the 29th. So if you're interested in doing the star lighting with us and bringing in the holidays, we welcome you to do that. Thank you.